You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You're right in the middle of a super important video call, or maybe you're streaming that show finale you've waited all season for, and poof, the internet's gone. It is so frustrating. That one little hiccup, that single point of failure, can just bring your entire world to a grinding halt. But what if it didn't have to be that way? I mean, really, what if there was a network that was designed so it just couldn't fail? A network where if one connection goes down, the data just instantly, like magic, finds another way to get where it's going. I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's totally real. And it's the core promise of this incredible concept we're talking about today, mesh topology. All right, so before we can really get into how a mesh network works its magic, we got to back up just a tiny bit. We need to talk about this foundational idea called network topology. So what is it? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a blueprint for a house. It's the plan, it's the layout. It's not about the individual bricks or wires, but about how everything is arranged and connected together. And that blueprint, well, it decides everything. Okay, so keeping that blueprint idea in mind, let's zoom in on the specific design that promises this almost unbelievable level of reliability. So here it is. This is the heart of a mesh network. You can see it's not a simple straight line. It's not a star shape with everything connected to a middle point. Nope. It's a web, a spider web of connections. Every single device, we call them nodes, is connected to a bunch of others. And the real magic word here is redundancy. If one path gets blocked, who cares? The data just says no problem and zips along one of the countless other routes. There is no single central point of failure to worry about. Now, this quote, this is talking about the absolute ideal, the gold standard. In its purest, most perfect form, a true mesh network is where every single node is directly connected to every single other node. Total connection. And this is the genius part. This is what makes the whole system so smart. Each device isn't just selfishly sending out its own data. It's also a team player. It's a helpful messenger, grabbing data from its neighbors and passing it along the chain. So every node is both a source and a router. And it's this cooperative relay system that makes the network so dynamic and, get this, self-healing. Yeah, as you can probably imagine, that whole connect everything to everything idea gets really complicated really fast. So out here in the real world, we mostly see two main flavors of this. It's basically a choice between the perfect, unbreakable ideal and what's actually practical to build and pay for. And that brings us to the big trade-off. Let's break it down. On one hand, you've got the full mesh. This is the ideal we just talked about. Every node connected to every other node. You get the maximum possible reliability, insane fault tolerance. This is the kind of thing you use for the literal backbone of the internet. But, and this is a huge but, it's incredibly, unbelievably expensive. Then, on the other hand, you have the more common sense approach, the partial mesh. Here, only some of the key nodes are connected to multiple others. The connections are more strategic, right? You put them where you know the most data is going to be flowing. The result? You get a lot of the benefits, but at a much, much lower cost and complexity. I mean, just take a look at this picture. This is with, maybe a half dozen points, and it already looks like a tangled mess of lines. Now just try to imagine this with 50 nodes, or 500. The number of cables and connections you'd need would just be astronomical. It explodes. And that right there is why a full mesh network is so incredibly powerful, but also why you almost never see one in the wild. And really, this is the core dilemma of mesh topology. It's this constant balancing act. On one side, you're chasing this dream of perfect, unbreakable reliability. But on the other, you have to face the fact that that perfection, it comes at a very, very steep price. Okay, let's talk about the good stuff first, because it is seriously impressive. We're talking about networks that can handle just massive amounts of traffic, since data can be flying around from different devices all at the same time. And here's the killer feature, the main event. If a single component fails, a cable gets cut, a device goes offline, the network literally doesn't even blink. It just shrugs, finds a new path, and the data keeps flowing seamlessly. That's what we call fault tolerance, and believe me, it is the holy grail for network engineers. But then you have to flip that coin over and look at the other side. All those amazing connections, they come with a price tag that is, and I'm quoting here, way too high. You need a ridiculous number of cables, a ton of connection ports on every device, setting it all up, and then trying to maintain it, it's a total headache. And the real kicker? Adding a new device isn't simple. In a full mesh, you might have to run a new connection from that new device to every single other device that's already there. It's a huge pain.
So, with this huge trade-off between power and price, you have to ask, where on earth does this make sense? Where is this kind of power actually necessary?
Well, you use it in situations where failure is just not an option, period. Think about something like a citywide Wi-Fi system that first responders rely on, or a huge network of sensors set up to warn people about an earthquake, or one of those giant supercomputers at a university that's running a simulation that could cure a disease. In all of those cases, the cost of the network going down, even for a minute, is way, way higher than the cost of building this super reliable, complex system. And that, right there, is why you and I don't have a full mesh network running our home Wi-Fi, right? For what we do every day, a short internet outage is annoying for sure, but it's not a catastrophe. The cost and the hassle of setting up a mesh network would be total overkill. Simpler, cheaper network designs get the job done just fine for us. But that kind of leaves us with a really interesting question to chew on, doesn't it? We started this whole thing talking about how frustrating it is when our connection drops. And as our world gets more and more dependent on being online 24/7, for our jobs, our schools, our health, literally everything, our patience for those failures is getting thinner and thinner. So the big question is, will the price of this perfect, unbreakable reliability ever come down low enough for everybody? Will we all have a mesh network in our homes one day? Or is that level of perfection always going to be something only the most critical systems can afford?